Room 6. This is where most retellings of the NoEnd House stop. Not because the story ends there, because the people telling it can't finish. NoEnd House got its name for a simple reason. According to the Creepypasta written by Brian Russell and published online in June of 2011, no one who entered the house had ever been seen leaving through the final exit. 9 rooms, $500. A challenge so casual it sounded like a dare between friends at a party. Walk through an old house, reach the end, collect the money. The premise was deceptively small. A young man, the story's narrator, is told about the house by a friend named Peter. A friend struggling with addiction, a friend who had tried the house himself and failed. Peter's warning was vague. He said it would be too much for anyone. He said it was unnatural. The narrator didn't believe him. $500 was too much money to walk away from. He decided to go the very next night. The house itself sat roughly 4 miles outside the city, in a stretch of land the story never names precisely. Deliberately vague, the way the worst real locations always are in stories like this. The narrator arrived at night. He noticed something wrong with the building before he even reached the door. Not damage, not decay, something quieter. A wrongness that the human body recognizes faster than the mind can explain it. Room 1 was ordinary. This is the detail that unsettles people most when they first read the story. No monster, no blood. Just a normal room, slightly too normal, like a stage set built by someone who had only ever seen a living room in photographs. The wrongness was subtle. A picture frame with no picture. A clock with no hands. The narrator stepped through, found the next door, and kept going. He had no way of knowing that each room beyond this one would take something further from him than the last. But what he didn't know was that the rooms weren't measuring his courage. They were measuring his mind. Room 5 is where the story's structure breaks the rules it spent 4 rooms building. The narrator falls into it from above, landing on his back, staring up at a ceiling that shouldn't exist in a house this size. Trees. Full-grown trees, rooted somehow inside a room with walls. The ceiling stretches higher than any room before it. He cannot find the door. Brush and forest growth block his line of sight in every direction. This is the room where readers in the original Reddit threads began arguing about what NoEnd House actually was. A haunted house. A simulation. A living organism. The story never answers the question, and that refusal is precisely why it spread the way it did in 2011 and 2012. Copied, reposted, discussed in forums that no longer exist. Room 5 doesn't behave like a room. It behaves like something that is no longer contained by the building around it. Here's what most viewers miss on a first reading. The story was never about 9 rooms. It was about how the 9th room never had to exist for the house to win. Failure, in NoEnd House, doesn't look like death. This is the detail that separates it from nearly every other ritual horror story that followed it online. There is no rule that says you die if you fail. There is no countdown, no chant, no candle that goes out. Failure is simply this. You don't come out the same person who went in, and sometimes you don't come out as a person who can be found at all. The sequels. After the original story's popularity exploded, a second installment appeared, expanding the mythology in a direction the first story never hinted at. In NoEnd House 2, the narrator wakes outside the building, certain he has escaped. The relief lasts seconds. He realizes immediately that something is wrong. His friend David, who entered with him, is missing, and a text message arrives from David's phone that should not have been possible to send. The message describes a location inside the house. The narrator is, somehow, still inside. The cliff. Later in the same sequel, the narrator finds himself standing at the edge of a stone drop, looking down at what he recognizes as the entrance to an earlier room. There are no stairs, no path down, just height and the suggestion, never stated outright, only implied by the geography itself, that the house wants him to jump. This is the detail that turns NoEnd House from a haunted house story into something closer to a psychological trap. The danger was never a monster behind a door. The danger was the house rearranging itself until the only way forward looked like self-destruction. This is the moment the entire mythology shifts. NoEnd House isn't testing bravery, and it was never about reaching room 9. It's reorganizing the geography of fear itself, building hallways and cliffs and forests out of whatever the person trapped inside is least equipped to survive. The house doesn't punish failure. The house defines what failure means as you go, one room at a time, always one step ahead of whatever you were prepared for. The hum. Throughout both stories, a low droning sound reappears at the worst possible moments. After a death, after a disappearance, after a text message that shouldn't exist. The story never explains the hum. It simply returns, like punctuation, marking the exact instant something has gone wrong. Listeners who discovered the story in audio narration form years after the original post often cite the hum as the detail that stayed with them longest. Not the trees, not the cliff, the sound. According to discussion threads that followed the story's spread across early horror forums and the subreddit r/Nosleep, the appeal of NoEnd House was never really about scares in the traditional sense. It was about structure. 9 sealed rooms, no way back, no way to know what waited on the other side of any door. Readers compared it to a maze with the exits removed one at a time. By the time most people reached room 5 or 6 in their first read, they realized they could no longer remember how the house had looked from the outside. The Adaptation. In 2017, the sci-fi anthology series Channel Zero adapted the story into a 6-episode season titled NoEnd House, condensing the 9 rooms into 6 and reframing the narrator as a young woman named Margot, grieving a recent loss before she ever enters the building. The adaptation kept the central rule intact: enter together, exit alone, or not at all. The show added something the original text never had: visible faces for the people who go missing inside, names spoken aloud by their friends, search parties standing outside a house that, from the street, looks like nothing at all. What stayed consistent across the original post, the sequel, and the television adaptation was the central cruelty of the design. NoEnd House never tells you the rules. It lets you assume them. It lets you believe that surviving room 1 means you understand what survival requires, and then it takes that assumption apart, one room at a time, until the thing being tested is no longer your courage. It's your certainty that you know where you are. No one who wrote about the house. Not Brian Russell in 2011, not the readers who kept the story alive across forums for the following decade, ever confirmed whether NoEnd House was meant to represent something real. Addiction. Grief. The mind's own capacity to build rooms it can't escape. The story leaves the door open, the same way it leaves every door inside the house open, right up until the moment it isn't. The final detail, the one most retellings leave out entirely, is this: the narrator of the original story never confirms how many rooms he actually passed through before the account ends. The number 9 was a promise made at the door. Nothing inside the house ever obligated itself to keep it.